Okay guys, so finally we can add the plants in today. I'm going to give you a few tips that I've learned along the way, but I am no expert, so if you feel something will work better for you, just go do that. But let's start off with a few little tips. So first of all, succulents. They aren't my favourite plants because they seem to be quite temperamental, and some of them, like the hen and chicks type of succulents, don't do too well in terrariums. However, the snake plant, also known as the mother-in-law's tongue plant, is a succulent, and it's actually very common in terrariums, and it is fantastic for crested geckos. These leaves are so strong they easily hold up a gecko's weight. So I of course want to introduce these into the tank. This one has already been in here before. Now one of the mistakes I did do is probably spray it with water too much, maybe water it a little bit too much. Interestingly, these actually require very little water, and if you notice they start to go brown at the end, that's because they have too much. It could make you think, oh my god, it hasn't got enough, it's dying, you need to add more, but that will just make the problem worse. So what I found in my other tank is if you divide it into a little section where you can put all the succulents, you know not to spray too much water over in that section, or just generally not water it too much. So obviously I'm going to probably put this snake plant in this corner because there's a nice space for it. Another plant I'm protecting from water is this one. It's from Indonesia, I've heard, and it has a nice yellow flower when it finally does flower. On its leaves, as you can see, they're dark green and purple, so it's quite an interesting little plant. I've decided to put that up in the planter up in the far corner. The reason being is the leaves can get really damaged if you spray them often, so if I get them up out of the way, hopefully they will avoid getting sprayed too much. Now one thing I've aimed to do with this tank is get small and medium plants to fill it up. This way it will give the illusion that the tank's a lot bigger. I did actually buy another Bromeliad for this, but then I realised it took up so much room that it just made the tank look so small. So we have this plant of course, but we've also got pileas, some smaller bromeliads. I've also got some ivy, so I'm hoping that this will give the tank the appearance of being a lot bigger than it actually is. So I'm going to add in this first plant. I don't have to worry too much about the soil because this plant is actually from a place who supplies plants for reptiles. I'm just going to remove some of these leaves because they have died off and they're not looking very good. That one's not looking fantastic. Oh look, he looks really bold now. Oh dear. So I'm going to cover the bottom up with just Eco Earth. You may not be able to see it, but the leaves from that plant I'm just leaving there because I'm going to be putting wood lice and worms in here and they can break that down and improve the soil, so that's totally fine. But I'm going to just put the first layer as Eco Earth. Then I'm going to add in the rest of the bag of earth mix I've left over from the other terrarium. I have actually brought another bag of this, so I'm just going to add this in. And I think I'm going to make up another brick of Eco Earth just because I want to make sure I have more than enough Eco Earth and not just use the entire bag of Arcadia Earth Mix since it is kind of expensive. Okay, so last night I made up the Eco Earth and today I'm back to putting the plants in the tank. And as you can see, I've already planted in the vanilla orchid, so that is in the planter right in the corner. And word of warning for you guys, if you're going to make a planter in the background, make sure you can access it because this has been so difficult trying to put in moss, bark chips, soil, more bark chips, moss, just so much in one area, and it's just difficult. It took so long. So I put in 3 stems, one that goes here, one down and one goes up. To hold them onto the cork, I use the little clips. If you've seen my equipment haul, you'll see what clips I'm on about. Hopefully once they've grabbed hold of the cork parts on their own, I will be able to take away the clips, but for now, just hold them in place. So I've unpotted this snake plant just so I can see whereabouts it might go. Obviously in this corner because the plant above doesn't like being sprayed with water. So that means if I can keep it all over here, then I can avoid spraying this area of the tank and just focus more over here. Also, it builds up the gap between here and here, so the gecko can easily go on here. But now I'm going to add in the massive Bromeliad. I don't know whether I add it in straight away, but I'm going to try to decide on an area where it should go. So I put it there. Now the good thing with this type of Bromeliad is it has like a long, tough stem sort of thing at the end of it, and you can just prod it into the foam and it'd be totally fine. Also, where the foam where I've prodded it in is under a load of stuff, if I do want to move it, that's not too bad. I may move it by the end of this build. I'm not totally sure. So I've been moving things around, trying to figure out where things should go, and this Bromeliad I bought and it came in a pot, but these kind of Bromeliads kind of have the hard stem bit like the bigger one has, so I just took it out of the pot and it actually does have the stem, but it's kind of flimsy at the moment. It also has roots, so I think if you do plant these kind of things they do develop roots, but I'm debating whether or not to plant it in the ground or put it in the background. So if you remember back, when I was doing the first part and I was removing some of these plants, the wandering dew plant has been a bit of an issue in the vivarium. Most people find that they grow really well, but my one hasn't. I think basically it's been trying to reach the light, so it kills off all the other leaves and just, you know, keeps growing. It gets really, really lanky. So I actually cut it here and I thought maybe it'll, you know, get some more leaves, but instead of throwing the top bit away, I planted it back in the soil. This is the top bit. It sprung off a whole load of new leaves, and when I took it out the other day, it's hard to see because it's tiny, but there's actually a tiny root system already growing on it. So I think I can plant that back in. I don't know if I'll bother with that. Maybe I will. And there's another tiny one. But they haven't been doing too well. Maybe with the earth mix in here rather than mainly eco-earth, maybe it will grow a bit better. So I've had this orchid for ages now. I wanted to put it in my other tank, but there just wasn't the room. But I think it can fit in here. It's going to add a splash of colour, I think. The only problem with an orchid is if we look down, its leaves are massive. And it sits at a weird angle, so I'm going to have to try to repot it. There was a second orchid attached to it, but if we just look, where is it? Here. You see this here? Yeah, I was trying to get it in the terrarium and it snapped. There's one thing I will say, live plants. They are very, very delicate. When you're making up a tank with artificial plants, you can be as rough as you like, but with live ones, if something drops on them, if you mishandle them, they can easily snap, and yeah, it really sucks. So now I've added quite a few of the plants in, I'm nearly done. All I need to do now is cover up some of the empty, just dirt parts. So I use carpet moss. I've found that even when this dries, it still looks pretty cool, because right now it's only slightly damp, and if you just add it into certain sections, it just brings it alive. Then of course I have to add in Isla's coconut. So I'm going to be putting that at the front of the tank rather than at the back this time. And also I've decided to put the light at the front of the tank rather than the back. Obviously whether you do it at the front or back it doesn't really make much difference, but I find that at the front it just highlights the tank a lot more. And I'll be putting the bubble wrap and the tinfoil at the back. If you know, I do that for humidity. Whether that's at the front or back it doesn't matter, but obviously if you're using a light you don't want to block the light. So that's the whole tank finally done. In the next video I will add in Isla and the cleanup crew, but that will be next week, and technically this is probably 2 weeks ahead. I'm filming it 2 weeks ahead, so by the time it comes out, the video comes out, it has been a while since I planted it, so I have waited a while for the cleanup crew to go, if you get what I mean. Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for watching all of this. If you want to go and do a natural terrarium, yes, it can be a bit expensive, but the animals just thrive in it. I just love it. So thank you very much for watching, guys, and goodbye.